there, it's Monday, February 17th, and I wanted to bring you an update on what happened in the Massachusetts State Senate last week. So let's start first with what's new, and what's new is something pretty exciting actually. So back in November 2019, the state legislature passed a bill that formed the Campaign Finance Commission, and one of their goals was to look into allowing candidates to use campaign contributions to pay for campaign-related childcare and even possibly family care expenses. So this commission was set up to study this, and they've started to have their first meetings on this issue. Now, one of the reasons why this is so important to me is because allowing candidates to use campaign contributions to cover childcare expenses removes one of the key barriers that prevents a lot of working parents and a lot of women from running for office. And I can say that personally for me, as a working mom and as a candidate, it is incredibly difficult to balance the two because I have to worry about the cost of bringing in someone to care for my son anytime I go to a campaign event and my husband just can't make it home to watch him. Now, 14 states already allow this, so this is definitely something that we're seeing become very popular across the country, and I'm really excited that the Massachusetts State Senate is taking this up. It's actually already allowed at the federal level. So the FEC already ruled last year that federal candidates can in fact do this. So I'm very excited that this is something that hopefully will be an option for candidates in Massachusetts very soon. Now, the next step is that the commission has until June 1st to submit recommendations to legislatures. So just a few months from now, we'll find out what those recommendations are going to be. And they have 3 more meetings scheduled at this point. So if this is an issue that you care about, I highly encourage you to contact your senator and to reach out to those on the Campaign Finance Commission and encourage them to push forward this important bill. So let's talk about what's changed in the Massachusetts State Senate this week. So the Work and Family Mobility Act was voted favorably, 14-4, out of the Joint Committee on Transportation. The 4 votes against it were the Republicans who sit on that committee. And this bill makes it possible for immigrants to have access to driver's licenses. So there are a lot of different reasons why this is an important bill. But let's talk about a few of them. The first is safety. So many immigrants are already utilizing driving as a way to be able to get to their jobs. By allowing them to have driver's licenses, it allows us to regulate this driving so that we can ensure that our streets are as safe as possible. It also allows them access to better jobs and allows immigrants the ability to live in more affordable areas so that they're not struggling as much to take care of their families. And I think that's a really important part of this bill. By this one simple measure, their lives will be incrementally changed for the better by simply allowing them driver's licenses. Now, there are also some fiscal benefits to this, and I don't think we can let these go unnoticed. So there was a 2017 study that actually showed that allowing undocumented immigrants in New York City to have driver's licenses would actually bring in an additional $57 million every year in revenues to the state. And it would also, they believed, help lower insurance premiums for all drivers, not just immigrants. Now, 13 states and the District of Columbia already have similar bills, so I think we're going to see this become something that's more and more common in other states, and I'm glad to see that Massachusetts is working to push this through. Unfortunately, Governor Baker has said that he will veto this bill in its current form. So I encourage everyone watching who supports this to reach out to your senator, to reach out to Governor Baker and encourage them to support this important legislation. And the last thing I just want to mention about this particular bill is that recently the Major City Chiefs of Police Association has actually come out in support of moving this bill forward. So this is a really important bill for our immigrant community here in Massachusetts. I think it's a really important bill that will actually benefit all of Massachusetts residents. And I'm really glad to see that there's been some movement favorably on this bill. So now I want to talk about things you should keep your eye on in the Massachusetts State Senate. So last week was a big week for mental health in the Massachusetts State Senate. The Senate passed the Mental Health ABC Act, which provides the state with more effective tools to enforce mental health parity laws. Essentially, this makes mental health treatment more accessible and more affordable for so many of our Massachusetts residents. Now, This successfully passed the Senate by a vote of 38-0, so I'm very happy to see that it received incredible support in the Senate. It's going to go to the House now, and so we need to encourage our representatives in the House to support this important bill as well. When it was in the Senate, 82 amendments were actually introduced. And there were several hours of debate on the Senate floor, and you can actually watch it. It's incredibly interesting if you have a few moments. Many amendments were withdrawn or rejected, including an amendment that actually required licensed behavioral health providers to accept at least one form of insurance. And I wanted to just say a little bit on this particular amendment. So half of licensed providers do not accept any form of insurance. And as someone who has suffered from anxiety and depression in the past, I can tell you candidly that it took me several years after I moved back to Boston to find a therapist that I could actually work with without having to pay out of pocket. Both because many therapists did not have availability, many therapists who took insurance did not have availability for 9 months to a year, or they weren't conveniently located, and I was working in the city. So imagine how many people are lacking access to the mental health treatment they need simply because even though they have insurance, they cannot find providers who will actually accept that insurance. So this was, I thought, a very important amendment, and I'm very disappointed to see that it did not pass. However, I have been told that they are working on studying this issue to hopefully ensure that there will be better access to insured providers in the future. Now, the bill does include several provisions aimed at encouraging more providers to accept insurance, but again, none currently that require them to do this. So at this point, the bill is moving to the House, and we'll see where it goes. I hope you found this update helpful, and I'll be back here again next Monday to tell you about what's happening in the Senate this week.